Some people think that moving to the suburbs is an amazing idea. Of course, there are some benefits, such as big houses and more economic growth. There's still a lot of defects. For example, the cost of land and the disappearance of green space. Suburbs started after World War II, when people moved out of cities into the countryside for bigger houses and more land. The attraction was manufactured by people wanting racially segregated neighborhoods and more space.
During World War II, families lived in the city where housing was much closer together and did not accommodate growing families. After World War II, a massive amount of people started to move into the suburbs. This period was referred to as the suburban sprawl. People were attracted by the extra space that suburban housing provided and decided to move out of the cities into larger suburban areas. Moving into the suburbs satisfied the needs of larger families, and by 2002, over 50% of the population was living in the suburbs. As more people moved into the suburbs, the more space they needed, and the only solution was to build outwards. The further out they built, the harder it was to reach the suburbs. This resulted in many people buying cars and the construction of more highways. Construction businesses and car manufacturers had more business with the growing neighborhoods. More people in the suburbs meant more homes and families. People became interested in moving to the suburbs, and the demand for space raised. The suburban neighborhoods became larger and more complex as more people arrived. More roads and neighborhoods were created for the new larger families. Advancement in transportation, such as trains and buses, made it easier to navigate the suburban areas, and a more efficient way to travel through the streets. As time passed, more products became a necessity to live, and as families grew bigger, housing grew with them. The people in the suburbs produce large amounts of waste, and since many items in the suburbs are being enlarged, the waste is getting worse.
In the suburbs, people take longer to reach places because of the far distance between everything. People are forced to drive everywhere. In fact, people drive 31% more. What if every store needed for daily necessities is no longer within walking and biking distance? Lots of people move to the suburbs for bigger houses, but land costs more in the suburbs. For the most part, only the wealthy can afford moving there. Scientists estimate 41 million acres of trees will be uprooted as a consequence of suburban sprawl. Green space can be used for lots of things other than suburbanization, like animal space and environmental purposes. 87.5% of people drive to work in the suburbs, and only 33% in the city. Since most of LA is wealthy, the majority of people live in the suburbs for bigger houses and more space. Many of the suburbs are on the beach, which makes the land cost even more. In most cities, lots of people live in apartments, and if they don't live in the city, they live in the suburbs. In 1820, Chicago had a population of 15. In 1898, it had a population of 1,698,575. The population difference in Chicago from 1820 to 1898 is a 3,397% increase, which was a real kickoff of suburbanization.
People have always known that the suburbs bring problems, but people usually don't know exactly what problems they bring. One problem that is carried with the suburbs is the land that is wasted due to the bigger homes and bigger yards. The suburbs take up land that could be used for farmland, food markets, education, businesses, healthcare, and other living necessities. The houses in the suburbs take up too much land. Houses use excessive amounts of extra space that isn't needed, not including the backyards, which also take up a lot of space. Urban environments waste much less land because everything is put into tall buildings that are immensely close to each other, which waste as little land as possible. Another problem with the suburbs is they force people to use cars to move around, because everything is so far apart. People living in the suburbs depend on cars because everything that they depend on, grocery stores, jobs, schools, etc., are usually not within walking or biking distances. Using cars is wasteful because cars emit pollution into the air when used, which is a big factor when talking about climate change. Climate change is caused when we burn fossil fuels, which is exactly what happens when we use cars. It's unimaginable how big the effect pollution from cars has on the environment and climate change. Urban environments pollute the air much less because everything is within a walking distance or accessible by public transportation. Another problem the suburbs bring is excessive resource consumption. The first time the suburbs were developed, it brought new technology such as built-in TVs and eating kitchens. Ever since the suburbs have existed, they've been home to consumers who waste large amounts of electricity and garbage. The suburbs are wasteful because people are attracted to ownership of material quantity. People were first drawn to ownership of material quantity at the end of World War II. The suburbs actually consume almost twice the amount of resources than the amount of resources consumed in urban environments.
World leaders and citizens need to think about the consequences of the way they are living. To combat the consequences of suburbanization, government should improve public transportation, create more advanced, eco friendly cars, and plan urban environments better. Local governments must help people change their lifestyles to become more sustainable. One solution is to increase and improve public transportation. This would cut down on air pollution from cars and cut down on gas, which is not an unlimited resource. If governments took more time to upgrade public transportation, people would not be as tempted to travel by car. When Americans travel, only 1% of this travel is by bike, and walking completes 9% of travel. So 90% of Americans' travel is not by bike or walking. 25% of all American travels have a destination within a mile or less. Cities need to build better and more transportation for this local travel with their tax money. 80% of car trips are not for work and could easily be avoided if city governments would make bike and walking transportation easier. Local governments need to take more time to plan their cities. There are others who need to act to stop the problems in the suburbs. Governments need to put in place more standards with urban planning. One sustainable solution to resource consumption is better government planning of the way their cities work. The way cities and suburbs are made waste land and resources. The government needs to better plan the cities because people are driving too much to get from place to place. If cities are better planned, people can walk to places when in the suburbs they currently have to drive everywhere. If governments better plan the way their cities work, then this would not be a problem. Globally, if automobile companies can make cars that can run on something other than petroleum, it will reduce air pollution, which would lower the carbon footprint. Driving from cities to suburbs wastes oil, which is a non renewable source of power. Different cities are using various ideas to fix the problem with suburbanization. Overall, when talking about the solutions to suburbanization, the best solution is for more people to live in better planned urban environments.
In conclusion, the suburbs bring many problems such as land waste, pollution, and resource consumption. Although, there are also many solutions available to fix the problems. The only thing left that is needed is for people to start acting and trying to make a difference. With time, suburbanization will no longer be a problem, which will greatly affect climate change in a positive way. People don't need to eliminate suburbanization completely, they just need to find more sustainable technology to help it.